Wow, ladies and gentlemen. I think an apology is needed to the casting department here because never in my wildest dreams did I think we'd be 2 days into live feeds and there isn't a single player on this Big Brother 25 cast that I don't like. I literally find every player on this season interesting for their own reasons because it is important that you have diversity, but it is also important that you have people from different walks of life. That way, the skill gap really separates itself between the super fan and the recruit slash casual. And what we are noticing 2 days into these live feeds is that huge dichotomy. Because you have someone in Kirsten who came into this game as a pure recruit casual. She saw Taylor Hale win and she thought, oh, that looks easy. I'll just do what she did. I'll flame out week one and I'll hope and I'll pray that production comes to save the day. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to say we are truly in an era where if you don't know what you're doing, you're not going to be saved by the bell screech. You're not going to be saved by the bell. Huh? If you do not know what you're doing on a cast like this, full of vultures, full of sharks, full of people that are looking for an easy way to get out a big threat, then I have to create the argument you signed up for the wrong show. Ladies and gentlemen, get yourself a cold beverage, kick your feet up. In this fifth rant, breaking down Big Brother 25 entitled Goodwill Never Sours, I'm going to give you all an even further deep dive as to how Kirsten buried her game so badly that even the Jared haters now can't blame him for it. Here exclusively on the Recency Bias Radio page. Well, actually, it's not Patreon. We public, baby, where no one is safe from criticism. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to Recency Bias Radio. It is so good to see you all enjoying the content, and my aim is to continuously give you all content over the year, over the next 100 days to be specific. Now, let's get into the brass tacks. You all have to be a hardcore fan if you are here to get another live feeds update this early in the morning. The house guests are currently asleep. I've caught up enough to be able to really break down what's really going on behind the scenes and understand before certain narratives start running rampant. I want the narrative to be known. Number one, the HOH is Reilly. What Reilly is doing in targeting Kirsten is completely warranted. All right, now I know there's a lot of people who think they're going to come to this channel and they're going to see me mad at Reilly. I think Reilly is playing this HOH really well. Do I think she's overplaying it a tad bit? Absolutely. But you have to understand, this HOH is almost a win-win scenario for a player like Reilly. Let me explain. Number one, she was already in control of the game before winning it. And I know people are going to say, well, why did she need to win it? Dave, aren't you the one who says someone who wins a comp when they're already in a great position is not a good player? Normally, yes, but this is a unique situation because the HOH this week, number one, based off everything I have been shown and everything I have seen, it's not as much blood that can go on this HOH's hands because the four nominees were already there before they were crowned. So that kind of absolves them from blood on the first step. So then it becomes, okay, the HOH can choose two people to essentially save to keep from being nominated, well, which we are all assuming for the rest of the week. Now, initially, Reilly was completely content with saving Felicia and Jared. Now, we all know why she wanted to save Jared. Jared is one of the few players that has been able to play both sides. I could create the argument for as messy as Jared has been, People can argue Jared has been just as messy as Kirsten, for example. And I'm going to try my best in this rant, ladies and gentlemen, to provide you all with the cast so you all can really see them as I break down some of their games. This was something people wanted me to do on my next live feeds update, so I will be doing these things. Now, we're going to go ahead and fast forward to Reilly's picture because I want to break down the psychology of an HOH on a first week such as this as Reilly. First things foremost, you need to understand, Reilly was in Phalanx 5. With who? She was with Luke, she was with Matt, she was with Jared, she was with Kirsten. Kirsten was the one who initiated the alliance. Now, if you watch feeds enough over the past night, Reilly already exposed she never trusts Phalanx 5, and I was the main one telling people the alliance was fake from jump because the number shakeout of it didn't sound like really Reilly would trust that. I felt as if Reilly and Luke were running it. Now, by this night of feeds, we now know Luke is no longer in a great position. People are beginning to turn on him, but that is because more alliances are forming. So what you got to understand is a big reason why Reilly's HOH is going to be very easy and self-explanatory is because Kirsten choked the entire bag away. See, what Kirsten needs to understand is if 3 out of the 4 initial noms are black, I understand that from Kirsten's point of view, she designated Cory as the only one who could go home out of that 4. So she tried to devise a recruit casual fan plan to try to convince an entire cast of players to send Cory home. The problem with this, though, is Kirsten created lies that were unsubstantiated that other players could go up to the other players, compare notes with, and expose her lies about. And because of that, because she's been so reckless, and let me explain what the lie specifically was. In the last Live Feeds update, I alluded to the fact that she was trying to scapegoat Red for her own mistake and trying to imply that the have-nots somehow traded spaces and they have some alliance up there in the have-not room. Well, then she tries to create the argument Red is this defender of the men, and Red is also in some men's alliance because he confirmed it to her. Now, what doesn't make any sense is, if Red doesn't know you from a can of paint, why out of all the people in that room, in that comic room, why would he tell you and you only that a men's alliance exists, that Cory is just conveniently within the men's alliance, who happens to be on the block next to 3 black people? Why would Red share this information to a lady if he was part of a men's alliance and if the men were so gung-ho about sticking together? And why would Kirsten be the only person with that information? It does not make any sense. So you have to understand, if Kirsten was more of a super fan, she would know not to push a narrative that if you just click your heels together, like Dorothy, and just think for a second and escape the yellow brick road Disney Plus of it all, you realize Kirsten's not living in reality with her game moves. And see, you got to understand, Kirsten saw Taylor play this game with not much of a knowledge base of how the game is supposed to be played and be rewarded for it. So Kirsten is running under the assumption she will be bailed out for her mistakes just because of her identity as well. So you have to understand, Kirsten has handed non-black players her head on a spike. Shout outs to the whisperers from The Walking Dead. You feel it, dig me, coach? And it right now, it really looks like Reilly is alpha. And it looks like Cameron might be beta. But that's neither here nor there, coach. All right, listen, understand, my thumbnails tell a story. I'm going to break down why the thumbnail looks the way it does, but you have to understand, Kirsten dropped the ball something serious. Everyone's creating these narratives. Oh, she's on the block. Oh, she's rattled, Dave. Give her a break. When you're on the block next to 2 other black people, you cannot afford to be super reckless because you could be also putting those other 2 black people in harm's way. Also, there are 4 black women on this cast, 1 black man. Initially, before this season, that gave me pause because I thought the black man was screwed. But now I'm looking at this differently. It's funny. Taylor's legacy is almost creating Taylor's karma to snakebite her archetypes that follow behind her the quickest. And this is what I tried to warn her stands about. You all trying so hard to give her all the credit for Monty's great game is going to lead to players overrating, or better yet, being more fearful of the archetypes that follow behind Taylor that are reminiscent of her. And this is what's happening to Kirsten. Don't get it twisted. Kirsten has done a great job of digging her own grave up to this point, but when you compound that on top of Taylor Hale's win, it makes it undeniable, and it makes it a target that she cannot move out of the way of. Okay? It's almost like we're playing Mario Kart. She's in first place, and the blue spike shell is coming, and you know who it's gonna hit, coach. Huh? If you're smart, you'll slow down and get in second so it passes you by. But Kirsten's too much of a novice. She's too much of a casual fan to understand the rules and regulations to know the blue shell's coming for her. And that's why she keeps volunteering to get hit by the blue shell with her own naivete. So you have to understand, her throwing red under the bus, and by proxy trying to imply Cory is part of a men's alliance just because Cory volunteered to be a have-not. She tried to frame two white men during a white woman's HOH. And keep in mind, she's doing this all the while being insecure and jealous of Reilly's connections with the men. So understand, it was Kirsten who initiated the alliance of the Phalanx 5. She had no problem working in an alliance with 3 men and 2 women, but then all of a sudden, when all of those men prefer Reilly more than her, then all of a sudden she changes her game, and now she wants the entire cast to believe she's all about women, she's all about femininity, she's all about an all-girls Final 2, and I get it, before the season she said she wanted an all-girls Final 2. However, the first alliance she made wasn't an all-girls alliance, it was a predominantly majority male alliance, which shows Kirsten is a pick-me who feels rejected, and because she feels rejected, she is now bitter towards Reilly. And the thing is, instead of her coming out and saying how she feels about Reilly, she knows Reilly's HOH, so then she plays this game of sneak dissing Reilly by putting her in this box of being aligned to the men who she wants everyone to be fearful of because they're aligned, which is her basically saying we should all go after Reilly next week. But I like Reilly, though. She always tries to end everything with, I like Reilly, though. The truth is you don't like her. And see, she had a conversation with Hisam on feeds, and this is when she truly exposed herself. See, I know in the first live feeds update, people probably thought, oh man, Dave, come on now, you might have an agenda here. She's not jealous of that blonde-haired girl. I think you're going overboard a bit. Watch that conversation with Hisam, by the chess set over there, right outside the HOH room. Watch that conversation with Hisam. I'm sure it's online somewhere for y'all. I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere for y'all. All right? Understand, she told Hisam that, listen, I don't mind Reilly spending time with Matt, but I can't help but think about the fact that I was there first. Then she tells Hisam that, oh, I wasn't the one really into Matt. It was the other way around. He was the one who had the hots for me. Well, if that's the case, Kirsten, if Matt truly was the one choosing you and you weren't the one choosing him, why were you so thirsty to have a majority male alliance just so Matt would agree to a deal with you? And why did you take it so personal when Matt started being around Reilly if you weren't the one that had feelings for him? See, ladies and gentlemen, if you allow these people to keep talking, they're going to bury themselves. And at the end of the day, Hisam is doing a great job of listening. But based off the feeds, Hisam, you need to be careful. Cory is on to you. And I think if Cory wins an HOH sometime soon, he's targeting Hisam. Remember, I said that first. But to stay on Kirsten, though, because she is the story of this week. And see, her fans want to create this argument that she's somehow some chaotic queen because she's a horrible player. When the truth is, if a black man was this bad, they wouldn't call him a chaotic king. So all of a sudden, she's a queen for being bad at the game? I thought y'all were fans of the game. You're showcasing how much of a casual y'all are. Because based off the attraction level of the player, you let them get away with anything. But then if the person isn't attractive, you don't give them any credit. Or better yet, if the gender is someone of a person, if something is someone you don't like, then you don't give them any credit. See, this is what we don't do at Recency Bias Radio. This is why I enjoy this entire cast. And even though I may critique Kirsten, because I do believe she is a dumpster fire of a player, I am thankful for her because she is proving all of the points I tried to make throughout the last 8 months about how Taylor Hale was setting up not just black men to fail by not letting us get any credit, but she was setting up sisters to fail by taking all the credit. And see, Kirsten has this obsession with trying to push narratives about men, and she wants Matt, Luke, and Red out the most. And I do not understand this obsession with wanting those three out the most, but she knew that the best thing she could push for was to get Cory out because she's currently aligned technically to Felicia, Jared, and of course she's on the block as well. So what you got to understand is the news of what she is doing, her throwing all of these people under the bus. She's already rubbed Felicia and Sari the wrong way. So it's creating infighting between sisters online. And see, this is the ironic part about it all, right? You would think a community that tries so hard to protect sisters would see the value in our elders more than the young, entitled girls of the current era of society. See, the truth is, the majority of fans are going to take Sari and Felicia's side, even Mimi's side, over Kirsten's side. Because the gameplay Kirsten is playing, it has compromised every black woman in the game. Because I'm here to tell you all, Mimi's game is hurt by proxy. Because everyone in the house views Mimi as Kirsten's ride or die final two. Because Kirsten's the one pushing an all-women's alliance to everyone. Everyone knows Felicia is with Sari, so by process of elimination, who has to be Kirsten's person? Me. So you got to understand, because they're playing pick me games, it's the reason why no one's trying to pick me for their game. Oh, we spitting bars right now. Entendres, coach. So what you got to understand is, even before Reilly won this HOH, Kirsten was making mistakes that were always going to set herself up for failure, because deep down you can't hide the fact that you are jealous of the fact that Matt is around Reilly more. And at the end of the day, coach, Matt is in another alliance with Reilly, another 5 in principle that has Jag and I believe Blue Kim in it, and I think Cameron, if I'm not mistaken. So you got to understand something. Kirsten truly dropped the ball this week, because I personally believe there was a moment where all of the guys were okay with getting rid of Cory. I think there was a moment where a lot of the women were okay with getting rid of Cory. But see, Kirsten started spreading information about Cory having a secret twist because he disappeared for a couple of hours. Understand, all of these things she's spreading because they are unsubstantiated rumors, because she can't wait until she gets confirmation, because she can't hold her water. It makes the average player believe you're too much risk to work with. Because if I try to tell you information about what my plan is, how can I trust you won't run to the next person who wins HOH and tell them everything I just told you when you're telling me everything someone just told you? So you got to understand, this is a big reason why Kirsten is currently in big trouble. Now, to break down more of Reilly's game, because that's important, Reilly won an HOH, ladies and gentlemen. Everything on feeds suggests she won the Balance Beam HOH comp. I call it the Sarah Beth Biles Invitational. You feel it, dig me? That was the comp Sarah Beth clutched DX in, and that's the comp she backdoored DX off the back of. So that's why I call it the Sarah Beth Biles Invitational. Now, apparently there was a red, a blue, and maybe a yellow route to go. And I guess Reilly was one of the only players who took the blue route. Apparently the blue route was the longer distanced route, but it had more of a flat surface you could run across. The other route seemed to be more narrow, more about balance beam. And because of that, Reilly won because she chose to take less of a risk and just sprint to the finish line. Because of that, she is the new HOH. Now, based off the live feeds, and at first, we all believed she was going to take off Felicia. We all believed she was going to take off Jared. Now, what ended up happening is, because Kirsten approached Reilly and tried to push for this women's alliance and spread all of these lies. And because Reilly can see through the lies, because Reilly is too much of a super fan to buy the lie of a recruit/casual, this put Reilly in the position of wanting to protect Cory more, realizing, wow, if Kirsten is working this hard to lie on this white man's name, let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen, if someone is working this hard to lie on the one white person's name that's on the block next to 3 black people, if you're non-black, this is not even problematic to think this. To me, this makes sense. This is a logical conclusion to draw. And this is why it's important for someone like me to say this, because if someone else says it, people might not hear it out. It's a logical conclusion to draw that Kirsten is rattled because all the black people may be working together. If all the black people may be working together, it makes no sense for someone like Reilly, who wants Kirsten out, to risk Cory, because Cory is the one person all the black people off the block would vote out over Kirsten. Reilly can't risk that. Because Reilly can't risk that, she ended up having a conversation in principle with Cameron. Cameron is really close to Red. He believes Red should be that extra number on the out that is a vote for them. But you have to understand, right now Reilly has a Final 2 deal with Jag. So Reilly and Jag now have basically a Final 4 deal in principle with Cameron and Cory. And I guess Red is like that 5th number on the outskirt to go with them. Also, there's a Final 3 in principle with Reilly, Jag, and Blue Kim. Not only that, they're working on an 8-player alliance, which is supposed to incorporate Matt, Luke, Jared, Blue Kim, Jag, and of course Reilly. And I think they're trying to bring America into the fold. Now, a lot of people are concerned why Mimi wasn't included in this 8. I think Mimi isn't included in the 8 because Kirsten is still in the house and they don't want to trust Mimi with any information right now until Kirsten's gone. I think the minute Kirsten's gone, you'll see a lot more players start to bring Mimi more into the fold, knowing she's a number that they can work with. But until Kirsten's gone, you cannot blame these players for assuming that those 2 younger sisters are each other's ride or dies. And let's be honest, Coach, it was Mimi and Kirsten who spent all that time talking game in front of America when she was laying down in the bedroom. It was them walking around talking late at night the first night of feeds. So what else is everyone supposed to assume? It's important for me to provide that context, ladies and gentlemen. Otherwise, it's going to be lost in the wash like other things. All right? So you need to understand that. So because Reilly had a conversation with Cameron, because she feels really good about Cory, because she has a Final 3 with Jag and Blue Kim and a Final 2 with Jag, because Blue Kim is showcasing herself to be quite the social butterfly within the house, it has put Reilly in a position now where she knows if she saves Cory and Jared, those 2 men owe her. Also, I need to throw this out there too, because I think a lot of people are thinking emotionally because they care about Kirsten emotionally. But you have to look at this strategically and logically. Production gave women a 1-player advantage on day 1, and they made the cast 17 players with 9 women and 8 men. It behooves every man in this house to guarantee a woman goes home. And since Reilly has the majority of the men and the strongest men all on her side, it behooves Reilly to not play the feminist game that, of course, someone like Kirsten is pushing. Because you got to understand, that's Kirsten's only thing she can throw out there because she backed herself into the corner to push that narrative. But before, she was perfectly fine with working with men until she saw they preferred Reilly. So at the end of the day, Reilly sees, oh, no. The only reason why you want me to be a feminist is because I'm playing the game you thought you could play because Taylor just won. See, Reilly's smart enough to know what's really going on. Women can tell when there's some static in the air. They can see it. The same way dudes, we can tell when, oh, he low-key hating. We can tell, women can tell when it comes to other women. So, listen. If Reilly's game is more so heavily leaning towards maybe the Nicole Franzel stance of wanting to kind of have meat shields and targeting women, she's playing this the right way because Kirsten clearly does not like her. She tries to play it off like she's cool with her, but everyone can tell there's insecurities there. And because those things exist, Reilly is making the right call deciding to take off Cory and Jared over Felicia and Jared because Felicia is less likely to win a comp. So keeping her safe, the likelihood of her repaying that favor to you exponentially is less than Cory being able to repay the favor to you, especially if Cory has some twist in his pocket. So you also have to throw that into the mix. So if all things go the way they're supposed to go, Reilly is planning to save Cory, save Jared, leave Felicia on the block next to Kirsten because Miss Felicia, she's cooking, she's cleaning, no one wants to see her go home, so she's the perfect pawn. And what did I say to you all in my worst of first? I said to you all specifically, I said Felicia would be the type of player used by non-blacks as a pawn to get rid of stronger black players. I said this to you all, and the prophecy is being fulfilled once again. Okay? It's common sense. This is just smart gameplay. I would do the same thing too if I wanted to target out and if I knew no one viewed her as a threat, because it's just the safe approach. And at the end of the day, now she has Cory and Jared owing her in the game. So if they do turn on her, now they look bad to the jury, now they look bad to the rest of the men, and this just safeguards her next week. So as long as the plan goes accordingly and Kirsten leaves, I can create the argument Reilly doesn't really have any enemy in the game that is strong. Now, the one backup plan that they have started to put into fruition, ladies and gentlemen, let me go ahead and show you all the backup plan. The backup plan they have is essentially if Felicia or Kirsten win this veto, they are going to backdoor Luke. Now, this came out of left field, but see, I think this is mainly because Blue Kim is very frightened by Luke. I also believe it's because when they first started pitching for this 8-person alliance, Jag, Blue Kim, and of course Reilly were mainly concerned about the idea that Luke, Matt, and Jared are a package deal. If you're those 3 players, do you really believe if you make Final 6, you can handle those 3 men 1v1, v1? Listen, that's a triple, what do they call it, a triple threat tornado tag match? You feel it? Well, I guess that would be a 3v3 tag, technically. But you get my gist. At the end of the day, if you're Blue Kim, if you're Jag, if you're Reilly, you do want to take the first shot. Because if you take that first shot, you at least have more control. Now, in my opinion, it would be a big L for Reilly long term if she took out Luke this week. I don't think that's a smart move for Reilly's game. I don't believe that. But I think the likelihood of Felicia or Kirsten coming off the block aren't that very high. So if this is your backup plan, it's not the worst backup plan in the world. I don't believe Jag or Blue Kim would gun for the veto, go out of their way to use it on Felicia or Kirsten just to get Luke out. I think this is just solely a contingency plan if somehow Felicia or Kirsten win veto and take themselves off themselves. So let me say that, ladies and gentlemen. So that's essentially the way the game is shaking out on that end. In terms of how the alliances shake out, Cameron does not like the comic book room. Outside of Red, he does not like any of those players. I mean, he said Bowie Jane was sweet, but he also said we need to just call the comic book room the floater room. I said, oh, they throwing shade. Oh, they throwing strays. And see, listen, contrary to popular belief, I love it when players talk that hot stuff because now they got to live up to that hot stuff. And Cameron, you were number 1 in my worst of first. I believe you would be the best player. So far, I don't think you've been the best player. I think Reilly has been. But you getting close to her, cozying up to her, that's what the best player would do this week. And for him to wait for the right moment to initiate that type of contact, create that type of established alliance, I think it was very smart for Cameron's game. And for that reason, I see Cameron and Cory now being very dangerous together. And weren't both of them in my top 3? It seems like things are coming together, coach. And it feels like everyone in my top 6 are working together now. So, well, actually, I think Hisam might be the only person in my top 6 that's kind of... And see, Hisam's read on this. Let me get into Hisam's game for a little bit. Hisam, technically speaking, you could say Hisam currently is playing the floaters game. Oh, here we go. technically speaking, you could say Hisam is playing the floaters game. He doesn't give much information out, but a lot of people confide in him. So he's a bit of a social butterfly. I'd say he's the male version of Blue Kim. He just happens to be older. Hisam sees how the game is shaking out. He has already agreed to work with Izzy and Jared, which basically locks him in as being on the older side of the house. And the way that this game is split, it's essentially a split house. And this is why I want Kirsten gone. If Kirsten leaves, the game is emphatically, it becomes young versus old. Whereas if someone else leaves, I think Kirsten could stay as the target of the house, and it keeps the house united against Kirsten. I don't want the house united against one person. I want the house at odds with each other. You feel me? I'm talking Def Jam fight for New York, coach. Huh? I'm talking Snoop Dogg done showed up. You feel what I'm saying, coach? I'm just saying what y'all are thinking. That's what we all want. This is the game we grew up on, where the house was split in half. People wanted that smoke. They were throwing shade. They were roasting each other. During the nomination speech, they came through with a little sneak diss here and there. You know what I mean? This is what we want to see. Right? We want to see entertainment. And this is why I kicked off this rant, letting the casting department know, hey, man, y'all need to take a bow. This cast is fantastic right now. I mean, geez, man, geez. But yeah, Felicia's a bit disappointed in Reilly's decision as HOH, of course. Let me go ahead and further break down why. From Felicia's standpoint, she looks at it like this. If it's 9 women in this house, and if there's 8 men, why is Reilly trying to target a woman? Or better yet, why isn't Reilly guaranteeing to save Felicia and Kirsten? That way it's 2 men on the block instead. They have the votes to save Jared, and essentially that's Felicia saying, why not just let Cory go? Well, Miss Felicia, objectively speaking here, you have to put yourself in the shoes of someone who isn't black for a second. If you're with Sari, and if they believe Kirsten is with Mimi, they basically view Jared as the one black person who has nobody. Even though Jared has already told Reilly he's close to you and Sari, and that's essentially why you're being used as a pawn, and this is why it was told ahead of time to Sari to smooth it over with you and Jared. But with that said, coach, you can't really blame Reilly for this move, because if you are Reilly, and if the men are the ones who resonate with you the most, you can't tell her to make a move that's bad for her long-term game when the men are more likely to win the next HOH, not y'all. See, if y'all were more likely to win the next HOH, I guarantee you she would be down. But she's so much of a super fan, she knows women don't work well together. See, it's the casuals who think women can work well together, when the truth is you're always more likely to see men scrap their ego for a common cause than you're able to see women within the Big Brother house scrap their ego from a common cause. Because the truth is, coach, when you're under pressure, people don't like to admit this, but women sometimes are their worst enemy in these environments. And we've seen this countless amount of seasons. I'm not speaking with a broad stroke. I'm speaking based off historical context, ladies and gentlemen. And hopefully y'all know that. So Felicia's disappointed. I'm hearing rumors that she's implying that this might be a bit of a prejudice move on Reilly's end. I'm not co-signing that. This is strictly logical and strategic. Now, is it the best look in the world for Jag, Blue Kim, and Reilly to essentially go out of their way to create all these side alliances that don't really include any black people in them? Not really. But with that said, I do believe Mimi's game will be reawakened once she no longer has Kirsten as that anchor holding her down. And see, that's the thing. They put so many sisters on this cast that, in my opinion, listen, sisters, at some point you got to be willing to let a sister go. They all can't make jury. And this is what I tried so hard to get y'all to see. This is why I was initially worried there wasn't enough black men. Because if it's not enough black men, then I could create the argument sisters have become the black man's shield, not the other way around. Because the black woman can beat the black man. So that's how this is flipped on its head, where Jared is almost being protected like a protected class now, and the sisters are the one now, mainly in the Hunger Games, because they have the threat level and the threat profile Taylor's karma dictates. And that is truly the irony of all of this. But once again, they said I was just a fool. They said I didn't know what I was talking about. But literally everything that I tried to preempt them of, it's coming to fruition. So, essentially, to let you all know, Felicia and Kirsten, both sisters, who were two of the four nominees, are likely to be the nominees that are locked in later today. Of course, the Power Veto comp most likely will be played either later today or most likely on Saturday, which it normally is played. Most likely it will be tomorrow. But yeah, so that's essentially what's going on there. Cory, I got to give him a lot of credit. For a guy who was not establishing many social bonds, he's more of a one-on-one speaker. He's not really in a group setting. He really can make a lot of people laugh. But I think he's quite charming when he has time to really speak to you alone. And I think Cameron sees himself a lot in Cory. And if you remember, Cameron said before the season he really wanted to play Ian's game. I think he sees Cory as someone who can also play a similar game. And I think Cameron may view Cory as his only shield within this game because Cameron socially isn't the best player either. Because of that, they need each other. And because of that, I got to give Kirsten some credit. Some of her reads are right in terms of Red being close to Cory, relatively. But the way she goes about trying to triangulate that target on the player, she has to rely on things that aren't true. And at the end of the day, a lot of things are best just kept in your head and left unsaid. If you have to lie on someone's name within the first 2 days of feeds to try to make them a target or make them a nominee, maybe, just maybe, you're fighting the inevitable. And I'm Hotep Thanos. I'm inevitable. And it was inevitable that Taylor's karma would haunt a sister very soon, a season after her win. But Cory, for him to dodge the block, when it seemed like he was guaranteed to be the target of the house, it goes to show Kirsten has managed to ruin herself so much that Cory is now a sympathetic figure to the same men that wanted him out for being too sneaky before. Now Jared, in my opinion, isn't even that against Cory. Jared went from saying, I don't trust Cory or Cameron, to basically being like, hey man, listen, Kirsten is the type of player none of us can trust, And she gives everyone the heebie-jeebies, not just the brother. And that's why it's important to state, it's very hard now for them to blame the black man for any of this. It ain't his fault. And this is why I said what I said in that last update. But, so, yeah, Bowie Jane, she's still pretty much invisible. Blue Kim, I think she did a great job to get within the inner circle of the current HOH. I really do believe Blue Kim is playing a really solid game. If she continues to bridge that gap between America and Reilly and, of course, Jag, they have the numbers that they need to essentially link up with Cameron and Cory. And before you know it, they're solid, that group. I could create the argument you just add Matt to that group, and that's already an 8. So, yeah, they're looking really solid. And if they can get Jared to be on their side here and there, they're Gucci. So, yeah, I really do like Blue Kim's game this week. Got to give her a lot of credit. America, relatively invisible, similar to Bowie Jane, but she's playing it smart early on. Someone with her skill set that played as well as she did in the first puzzle comp of the season that, of course, Jared finished last place in, it was wise for her to lay low. And for that reason, I think she's playing a solid game. I want to make sure Red, he's kind of invisible as well, not really playing that hard. Mimi, she's being left out of a lot of game conversation, but I can tell a lot of people like her spirit. They like who she is. It's just a shame that Kirsten decided to start off this game playing the way she did. I believe if Kirsten would have played a more level-headed game, been at a more level-headed approach, Mimi's game would be a lot better off right now. Right now, she needs Kirsten gone because that would be addition by subtraction. Matt, same thing. He's still playing just as steady as he was the first day of feeds. He's not initiating any alliances. He's being brought into all of them because people fear his physical skill set. But people don't fear him as much as they fear Luke either. So he's benefiting a lot from being in that nice, happy medium there. People aren't threatened by him socially like they're threatened by Luke socially. And that's big. And also, it feels like Cory wants Luke out just as much as he wants Hisam out. But that's neither here nor there. So we've pretty much covered everybody on the cast, ladies and gentlemen. This was pretty much my live feeds update. I will provide another one for you all after the veto competition. We get the veto results. But then again, if nominations don't change, then there's not much to update you on. But over the weekend, I'm definitely going to be taking my notes. I'm definitely going to be paying very close attention to what's popping off in these streets. And if I see anything interesting, you'll be the first to know. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Dave Smith with Recency Bias Radio, where no one is safe from criticism. And please don't forget to like this video, comment underneath it, and share it with all of the fans of Big Brother 25 that you rock with. Do you agree with me on this cast? Is this arguably one of the most entertaining casts of all time? I can't name a single person out of the 17 I dislike. I can't name a single person I dislike, right? Are there some players I would like to play better? Yes, but I can't say I dislike them for that. So there's always going to be a skill gap there. There's always going to be someone who's at the bottom of the strategy. There's always going to be someone who's at the top. That's just the way the game is dictated. But yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, comment below. Let me know who your favorite player is so far. Do you agree with me that Kirsten, at the end of the day, coach, she dug her own grave and now she has to lay in it? Listen, I know a lot of people would like to see her win veto for chaos to ensue. A lot of people would like to see her win veto just so it could preserve the 5 black players for one more week. But in my opinion, it would be best for the game if Kirsten leaves this week. Because once she leaves, now it's not that easy person for every HOH to go after, and now people have to start exposing their real games in week 2. And at the end of the day, that's best for all of us fans, because that means a split house. And a split house means y'all gonna get even better rants and breakdowns. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the flip side for another one. Until next time. Deuces.